Welcome and settle in. Tonight, imagine yourself on a quiet night shift in a gravitational wave observatory where kilometers of silence hold a steady watch and space itself hums with the slowest tremors. Before you drift, if you enjoy these calm journeys, you can gently tap like and subscribe and keep our Sleepy Science playlist open from the description so the learning can continue as you rest. How sleepy are you on a scale of 1-10? You find yourself at the perimeter as dusk resigns tonight, the horizon softened by a thin veil of twilight. The observatory stretches out in the gentlest lines, long vacuum tubes reaching away like silver threads laid across the earth. The air feels cool and still, slightly metallic from distant equipment and faintly sweet from dry grasses. A small gate budges open with a soft electrical sigh, and rubber soles whisper over the clean concrete path. In this place, even a footstep carries patience, and the quiet seems to grow deeper with every breath you take. The control building glows in a low amber, careful not to startle the dark. A gentle hum runs through the walls, like a room asleep yet attentive. You imagine yourself gliding down a corridor lined with windows that show the long arms of the interferometer, each straight corridor of vacuum reflecting the last, fading into the night. Outside, small red beacons mark the rhythm of distance, one after another, like scattered embers on a string. Inside, your hands meet the familiar coolness of a door handle, and the latch yields with a soft click that feels almost ceremonial. A control room opens like a quiet cocoon. Monitors glow with pale blues and moss greens, white lines and steady digits, moving so slowly you have to settle to see the flow. A console lamp lights a notebook with rounded corners and tidy handwriting, the ink softened by use. The soft hiss of air conditioning mingles with a distant flutter from a cooling fan, and the faint scent of ozone, clean plastic, and ground coffee sits in the air as a gentle background. Chairs rest slightly angled, as if reminding you that everything here is shaped around small adjustments. You breathe in, and the place breathes with you. Imagine yourself settling into the night shift. Fingers trace a routine that brings comfort and confidence. A whisper of fabric as you sit. A hand resting near the keyboard, not to rush, only to remain ready. You glance across a set of status panels that read like a heart rate of the machine. Beam power steady. Cavity alignment settled. Seismic noise low and even. Outside, the wind makes no argument tonight. The ground is calm. The sky has a clear, velvety look, and stars are beginning to show that quiet glitter that belongs to crisp air. You touch a warm ceramic mug and feel the smooth surface against your palm, an anchor to the moment. The gentle rhythm continues. Gravitational waves do not stir the air. They do not rustle leaves or rattle window panes. They pass through as if through a whisper of thought, changing distances by a fraction beyond small, a breath within a breath. The observatory waits for such murmurs with a gaze that never blinks. Two long arms form a broad L on the landscape. A laser travels their length, splitting and rejoining in a calm dance of light. The interference at their meeting point tells a story of length and of change, so tiny that it slides under ordinary senses and lands in the careful embrace of mirrors and glass, suspension fibers, and light tuned to quiet. You imagine the laser as a quiet river of light. It leaves a chamber so controlled that the word quiet feels like a temperature. The beam passes through isolators that keep it from hearing itself, through modulators that give it a soft, regular pattern, like a heartbeat encoded in brightness and phase. It splits at a beam splitter, smooth surfaces on careful mounts, and travels down vacuum tubes 4 kilometers long, where the mood is lunar and patient. Each arm ends with a mirror that does not touch the world. The mirror hangs from slender glass fibers, each fiber thinner than a pencil line, each fiber strong as a practiced breath. A chain of suspensions holds the mirror in a hover, removing it from the ground's small shivers. It feels like the mirror is asleep, yet aware of light. When space itself stretches or squeezes across the arms, one arm feels a slightly different story than the other. The light combines at the beam splitter again, and the difference appears as a gentle rise or fall in intensity at the photodetector. Sometimes the change pulses upward, tightening frequency like a well-tuned hum that grows brighter and then fades. Sometimes it is softer, less certain, and you learn to recognize the character of what the light is telling. Binary systems of compact objects far away can drift together in long spiral patience, and their gentle inspiral adds a small song to space-time, a rising chirp that passes across the detector as a curve so delicate that it almost looks like a breath drawn and then released. The control room gives no applause for this. It continues its measured hush. You find yourself watching the baseline first, the noise, the environment. Seismic sensors show the slow swell of microseisms from the ocean, that global heartbeat of waves meeting shelves and shores. On a calm night, the curve sits low, like silk on a table. Small peaks mark known lines, the hum of mains electricity, the gentle whisper of air handling, a set of calibration tones so faint that they resemble a memory of a tune. Power spectra scroll with threads of colour that drift as the algorithm smooths and updates. It is soothing to watch, like looking at a river over stones, where patterns change but the flow remains. The vacuum system holds a quiet that has weight. You imagine walking the service gallery that runs parallel to one of the arms. The concrete is clean and the handrails are broad and cool. The vacuum tube itself sits, slightly warm from air temperature changes outside, layered in insulation and structural support, its roundness running toward the horizon. Each gate valve is a small gatehouse on that line, each pump station a low, steady presence that keeps the pressure thinner than mountaintop air by many orders, so thin that the word air no longer fits. Ion pumps hold on in that stillness, silent for human ears. The long run of the tube feels like the inside of a piano string, but one that carries no sound, only room for light to move without bumping into anything at all. The gentle rhythm continues. If you close your eyes, you can map the distances like chapters in a novel, from the input optics table to the beam splitter, from the beam splitter down to each end station, from the end mirrors back to the central station and into the output optics that arrange the tiny leftovers into a readable whisper. An interferometer acts like a ruler made of light, and its smallest measurement feels like a sigh pressed into the length of a continent. This ruler cares about timing far more than length. It senses the way waves change the time needed for light to complete its round trip. The detector's sense of time is anchored to clocks that are disciplined by signals from satellites and disciplined again by internal oscillators that run with the steadiness of a held breath. Even timing has layers of napping and waking, of small corrections and gentle settling. At your console, different dashboards provide a soft mosaic. One shows the lock state of the interferometer, which is the word used to describe how all the control loops are behaving together. When lock is strong, everything feels anchored and the output strain channel looks smooth and balanced. Words and numbers in green rather than yellow. Small bars filled rather than twitching. You do not stare or force an outcome. You keep an attitude of relaxed attention, as if listening to a friend speak slowly about something important. A state machine called a guardian holds the overall plan, stepping the system through well-practiced stages. Invention gave the machine patience. You join it, and together you wait. Now and then, a monitor shows a little flicker, a transient that is not from the sky. The controls capture it so you can learn. A tap of something mechanical, a glimmer of scattered light grazing a surface, a tiny discharge in an electronic chain, the minor world that lives under brilliant silence. The sensors outside listen for rain, wind, and distant thunder. But on this night, they report the quiet language of dry leaves and cool air. Sometimes, a far highway sends a gentle low rumble that appears like a wide hill on a plot. Sometimes, the local lake, if there is one, shares its soft conversation with the shore, and the global microseism rises. You note it in a log, and the act of writing gives it a place to rest. As the night holds, you imagine stepping into the optics room in your mind, because the real one stays clean and enclosed. Tables float on legs that isolate them from ground motion. On those tables, there is a forest of posts and lenses with their edges softly gleaming. Mirrors sit like miniature moons. One mirror has a tiny heater ring around it that adds a small correction to the curvature of the glass. Like a tailor taking in a hem to smooth a line, there are baffles and stops that keep stray light from wandering. Modulators impose patterns. Demodulators decode them. Each element is a careful, quiet collaborator, in the same performance, the way a string instrument player holds a bow steady during a series of very gentle notes. Underpinning the entire effort, the suspensions form a world of pendulums. Each test mass hangs as the final link in a chain that filters away the chattering of the earth. A pendulum is a patient teacher of quiet. At high frequencies, it remains still while the ground moves. To feel that, you imagine holding a long string with a small charm at the end. If you move your hand slightly and quickly, the charm does not keep up. That basic idea, engineered over stages with careful materials and magnets that whisper their guidance, lets a 40-kilogram optic behave like a leaf floating in still air, touched only by the light that meets it. Thermal noise remains, the random jostling of atoms in glass at room temperature. It is a blush in the plots. Coding noise is a soft rise in a certain band. The shot noise of light itself makes a high-frequency grain, a sand fine enough to be soothing in the way it looks on a screen. The gentle rhythm continues. Through all of this, the laser is a steady companion. Its frequency is stabilized against a reference that is itself stabilized. That chain of gentleness holds back the jitter of any one component. Imperfections exist, but they blend into a calm background when properly balanced. There are slow drifts that resemble sleepy breathing. There are fast fluctuations that are tamed, like small ripples under a hand placed flat on water. The team has a way of improving even the quiet. They inject a squeezed state of light, a delicate way of reducing quantum uncertainties in the part of the signal they care about most. It sounds esoteric, but in simple terms, it gently reshapes the grain of the light, making the noise less in the most useful dimension. In a darkened lab, that technique feels like placing a silk scarf across a bright lamp to soften and even the glow. Outside, the long arms are watched over by the night. The distant towers that hold mirrors at their ends are small islands of quiet architecture, lights dimmed to a respectful glow. The ground along the arms is kept clear. You imagine walking the gravel path beside one tube, your steps falling in a slow, comfortable cadence. The crunch is soft, almost cottony. A breeze, if it visits, comes in a mild line along your cheek and leaves in the same straight way. If you pause and look up, you see the stars with more clarity than usual, since you have allowed your attention to be so still. The Milky Way hangs like spilled salt in a thin line. You are watching the universe in two ways at once, one with your eyes taking in the simple sky, and one with the detector taking in the smallest ripples that travel vast distances with very little change. The observatory is part of a conversation among many places. There are partners across oceans and continents, each with their own night and their own quiet. Some are in forests, some near hills that fold gently, and one passes its instruments under a mountain. Together, they form a network that listens to the same sky with ears placed far apart. When one hears a soft crest, another, many kilometers away, hears it too, slightly shifted in time, and then a third, and sometimes a fourth. By comparing the arrival times and the way each detector responds, people draw a map of where on the dome of the sky the signal likely came from. It looks like a petal stretched wide, then narrowed as more information lands. It is a gentle way of narrowing a mystery without rushing it. The gentle rhythm continues. Matched filtering is the way the observatory searches for signals that have a known shape. Templates describe how a waveform would look for a pair of compact bodies spiraling together, a binary of stellar remnants, maybe both with masses measured in suns. In the data, the template slides across, and when the dance of numbers aligns, a quiet crest rises in the detection statistic. It is like recognizing a melody you know in a room filled with soft conversation. The melody is faint, but the contour is so specific that you know it by feel. Analysts build banks of templates that span possible masses and spins, and they maintain these banks with a calm craftsmanship. Alerts go out with soft tones. People in other time zones, also on night duty or afternoon duty, turn their attention, careful, curious, but unhurried. In the control room, the glow on your face changes near imperceptibly as a spectrogram scrolls, the colors shifting with slow grace. You find yourself leaning back, relaxing your shoulders, aligning your breathing with the steady cycling of the plots. The room holds you without asking anything. You move a mouse with a small, patient gesture and bring up the strain channel. The units on the y-axis are not micrometers or kilometers. They are dimensionless. Strain is a pure ratio, a tiny fraction, length changed divided by length. Typical signals are at the level of parts in a septillion, a number so small it feels like dust in a cathedral, and yet with the right quiet, dust becomes visible in a beam of light. Here, quiet transforms numbers into understanding. When the detector is stable, a technician, perhaps you, may run a calibration routine. A small auxiliary laser applies a tiny push on a mirror by its radiation pressure, adding a gentle sine wave at a known frequency. The frequency shows up in the output as a thin, polite line. From the size of that response, the team calibrates the sensitivity and confirms that the chain from mirror motion to recorded strain is where it should be. In a log, you write a simple note with time and results, and your handwriting becomes part of the flow of the night. It is curious that a vast machine and sweeping concept distills into such small human marks. It is not a contradiction. It is the way things are held together. Sometimes a ping from a peripheral system suggests that a limit was approached and then released. A vacuum pump slightly warmed. A coil driver dipped and recovered. Everything that happens is small and expected. You take a sip of your warm drink and let the soft bitterness hover on your tongue before it fades. The walls do not echo. The floor is steady. If you listen carefully, your own breath is as much a part of the place as any fan. You become part of the instrumentation, not in function, but in mood, adding your stability to the stability around you. The gentle rhythm continues. You imagine now the history that sits quietly behind every panel. People in earlier years chose where to plant the arms, laid the first foundations, set the first alignment on a calm morning, measured the first vacuum pressures to sink into the numbers that mean the air within is no longer air. There were long design studies that tuned how to hold mirrors free of the earth. There were coatings built layer by layer to reduce thermally driven jitter, each layer only tens of nanometers thick, together forming a mirror that reflects almost perfectly. The work shines in the quiet way fine craft shines. You feel a gratitude for that care without stirring the air around you. When a real astrophysical signal appears, it can begin below, where human hearing would notice a simple vibration. It then climbs, gentle, to a frequency where the control room agrees with it silently, and then sends the numbers to colleagues and archives alike. There is no fireworks. There is a shift in tone as analysis confirms, checks, cross-checks, and the same shift often has happened many times before in practice runs. You feel an appreciation for routine, for how routine carries weight with grace. In your mind, you can see a faint chirp drawn across the page, the graph's line rising in frequency until it fades with a soft hush. The world beyond contributes without intrusion. An owl might pass from one tree line to another. A coyote may pad along the far fence, hardly a sound. If the site is in a plain, a light breeze brings the smell of dust that has settled and cooled. If the site is near pines, a resin scent may drift in from the grove's edge. The stars do not flicker here as much as they do in city air. They are steady and numerous and have a companionable distance. You think of the galaxies you cannot see with your eyes that far, where pairs of compact objects eventually find one another, and the word eventually means millions of years of orbiting, like a waltz measured on a calendar, not a song. The gentle rhythm continues. A long detector arm creates a ritual of scale. There is time to walk and time to wait. The alignment teams know that the best results come from small nudges in angle and position. They add a dither tone to coax an optic into a sweet spot, measure the response, and then press a control that holds it there. It is like balancing a coin on its edge on a still table until it seems content to remain. In those moments, the connection between the machine and the sky tightens just a little bit in a tangible way. If you could feel it with hands, it would feel like a soft snap of a thin thread finding the right tension. Low frequency noise is swayed by the earth itself, the way the ground swells and relaxes with temperature and pressure and waves out at sea. Mid-frequency noise is shaped by suspensions and coatings. High-frequency noise is shaped by the nature of light, by the counting of photons. The team gently adjusts each layer. The quiet is built from many small rooms where improvements live. A new baffle here, a polished cable route there, sleeves added around a motor to quiet its presence. Small knobs turned on filters so that they match what the sensors actually do. not only what they once were modeled to do. It is a slow polishing of a crystal, this work, never hurried, always worthwhile. At the console again, you imagine the river of data leaving the observatory. It travels in protected pathways to computers that wait to compare and to interpret. Automated pipelines look for known patterns. Other pipelines look for transients that do not match the usual. People watch the results with that same calm you practice, the calm that says that patience is also a tool. A candidate event gets a short label, something like a date and a time. Perhaps it has a low false alarm rate. Perhaps it has a little uncertainty at first, then firmness as more checks pass. Notes carried in polite language that honors how far away the source likely was. All of this is behind screens and copper and fiber. In this room where you sit, the expression of it is an even breath and a small change in the brightness of a few lines. The gentle rhythm continues. During long, quiet hours, you sometimes read from a reference binder. It may contain an overview of the optics, a short explanation of the radiation pressure effect on test masses, a description of the noise budget, the sum of contributions that add up to the baseline, each with its own color in a plot that looks like an evening skyline. You let your eyes glide along the shapes. The shot noise rises like a gentle incline on the right. The thermal noise bumps softly in the middle. The seismic isolation pushes another component down at the low end until it disappears into the ground's natural breathing. You picture the instrument like a tower of cushions that keep bumpiness at bay. The work is not about removing the world. It is about understanding it enough to let the world be gentle. Now imagine stepping outside again, alone with the arms in the early part of the night. Gravel underfoot, a dew beginning to think about forming on railings, metal cooling to the evening's tone. The tube segments, painted and bolted, have a repetition that calms. At each expansion joint, there is a sense of slight allowance to breathe. The lines back to the central station are still and sure. You can lay a hand on a railing and feel that the material holds stories of sun and shade and winter frost. But at this moment, it is only cool and present. Your breath appears as a light mist if the temperature allows. It vanishes quickly, the way a transient fades from the frequency map, leaving no mark, only the memory of having been. Return to the control room in your mind. A pale blue panel shows the vacuum pressure reading inside the main tubes. It is very low. The number makes you think of an open star field, but this is empty of matter instead of full of light. You note how long it takes for pressures to change when a pump is switched, which is not something you will do tonight. But knowing the timescales makes the system feel like a friend whose moods you understand. Slow changes mean stability. Quick changes mean attention. You prefer slow, and tonight you have it. A small alarm tone, very soft and comforting, not urgent, reminds you of a predetermined time to check a status page. You scroll with a gentle finger and confirm that the control loops have remained where they should. The power in the arms is steady. The output photodiode is neither saturated nor starved, but comfortably in range. The environment sensors are quiet. You type a line in the electronic log with the time and your initials. The act of saving the entry feels like tucking in a child with a light blanket. The gentle rhythm continues. You consider what the signal would look like if a pair of stellar remnants, one slightly heavier than the other, tightened their orbit over millions of years and then reached the final few minutes of their journey. The frequency would rise quickly near the end, but quickly does not mean what it means for conversations about weather or traffic. Here, quickly means a second or two of a sound that would be a soft chirp if translated into audio. The amplitude grows by a small amount, then falls away. There may be no luminous display for us to see, just the quiet record of the wave passing the Earth, having passed the observatory in that universal way that does not stop or slow. The Earth reacts by an amount that is at once far too small for everyday senses and exactly within reach of the instrument's careful design. Now imagine the patient conversation with global partners. A notification appears, a summary of a candidate signal. It carries a calm probability estimate, a sky map shaped like a wide crescent. People in different time zones compare notes. They check coincidences with other observatories. Some teams use optical telescopes to look at the sky patch, but there is no hurry. Many such nights have no strong candidates. The value of the night sits equally in knowing you have looked and listened in the best way you can. Sleepy jokes in team chats drift by and then drift away. A request for a small calibration check is acknowledged. The job ends and begins again. A gentle heartbeat on the scale of long months. Back down a hallway, there is a room with spare parts and tools in cases, each case labelled in calm block letters. There are pristine gloves and clean cloths for handling optics, though you will not touch any tonight. The shelves carry plenty of what is needed so that when work happens, it can be quiet work. A binder of procedure pages is stored with careful tabs. The procedure language is formal and reassuring. It removes doubt about order, leaving room for attention to details. When a task happens on a day shift, the space becomes a light ballet of measured movements. The night shift mostly observes, and that is a role full of meaning. The gentle hum of a rack of electronics near the door has a slight tremor that changes with the building's air conditioning cycle. It is too faint to hear without trying, but once you notice it, it becomes a soft, predictable nod. You briefly imagine opening a rack door, seeing rows of modules with LEDs that blink with patient regularity. Each LED stands in for a stream of numbers that would fill a page. During the night, you are a steward of these little blinking constellations, making sure none of them speaks out of turn. The gentle rhythm continues. You can picture what sits at the end stations, far down the arms, a small, quiet room, an enclosure for the end mirror, a scattering of support electronics that listen and guide, shielded in quiet boxes, perhaps a chair that is almost never used, and a small mat to keep dust faithful to the floor. The mirror at the end has a mass that makes it immune to small touches, and it sits in vacuum with a kind of soft grandeur. Tuned magnetic fields help hold its orientation. The coating on the mirror returns almost all of the light, and that almost is enough to shape the cavity where the light bounces many times before returning to the central station. These many bounces turn the instrument into a long, soft ear. The ear listens not to sound, but to geometry, to the slight, rhythmic change of distance as space itself breathes with the cosmos. Between checks, time stretches obediently. You notice your posture. Let your shoulders down again. Unclench any hidden tightness in your hands. The chair supports you with quiet authority. A clock whispers a small tick you can barely hear. The room temperature holds steady. Your eyelids feel a gentle weight that you can honor by slowing your gaze. The display colors seem friendlier now. The blues and greens more like a tidal pool in shade. The gentle rhythm continues. When you open the radio channel to the other side, the audio tone is moderate and comforting. A voice confirms their routine checks and then rests again in silence. You imagine the other room, different in shape and color, remarkably similar in atmosphere. Another pair of arms reaching into a different landscape, cutting across another set of grasses, or pines, or sands, or fields. The world is big, yet these places share the same type of stillness. They build a calm bridge across the planet, carrying the same care. Sometimes, on schedule, a deliberate calibration injection enters the system, and you see it in the data as a small known line. You mark it, and later you know to ignore it when looking for the unknown. Calibration lines become friends. You know their faces. You notice if they ever move. They rarely do. You notice if their brightness changes. They do not. And that steadiness is a relief. The gentle rhythm continues. If you choose, you can picture the math that organizes all this. It can be as peaceful as patterns on a quilt. Fourier transforms lay the signal out by frequency, like arranging seashells by size. Windowing softens the edges to keep ringing from intruding. Filters sit like polished stones in a stream, letting certain sizes of ripple pass while cooling others to a quiet end. You do not need to hold the details to appreciate their feel. The process is regular. The process is trustworthy. The algorithms are not flashy. They are dependable companions that have walked this road many nights. Around midnight, you might refresh the log and write another line to show that everything continues nominal. The word nominal has a comfort to it. It means the system behaves the way it did when it was designed and tuned and tested. It means nothing unusual is asking for a decision. It means your duty is to watch, to be steady, to be ready. You feel a gratitude for the slow times. They hold the structure of the fast times so that fast never feels rushed. The night shift is a place where the instrument and the sky meet at a speed that suits sleep. Outside, somewhere along the arms, a small animal may pause at a fence line and decide to turn back. The air may carry the scent of damp earth if recent rain has passed. If clouds are thin, they slide over the stars without hurry. If the moon hangs low, it casts the straight tubes in long shades that shift so slowly that you notice only if you stay for a very long time. In this blend of nature and design, there is no argument. The observatory is a guest on the land. It rests on pylons that spread weight. It covers the tubes in clean cladding that does not glint too bright. It coexists with grasses and shrubs that rustle softly in any faint breeze. The gentle rhythm continues. Begin to picture the morning that is many hours away without actually moving toward it. Dawn will come in a patient wash. The detectors do not prefer night or day. Human schedules prefer night to do the quiet listening, but the machine itself is ambivalent. It seeks quiet in the ground and steadiness in the environment. Nights often give both. The sun will lift the temperature slowly and shift the air density in the arms by a tiny amount through the walls and foundations. The effects are known and tamed. The instrument breathes with them, not against them. The night holds the breath before that change arrives, and you float in the holding. You could think about the idea of space-time not as a grid, but as a calm fabric. It is soft only in metaphor, yet the image helps. When a wave from a far-off gentle dance passes, the fabric stretches in one direction and compresses in another, then reverses. The amplitude is so slight that even a poet would hesitate to call it a ripple. Still, call it that in your thoughts. A ripple on a pond that takes hours to cross a lake. Imagine the pond is the size of the cosmos. The ripple is unchanged, but for its spread over distance. This is the quiet that passes through us and leaves nothing changed except the tiny record in a system prepared to notice it. The gentle rhythm continues. Now, as you rest in this calm, you may want to leave a little mark in the comments so your future sleepy self smiles when visiting again. Still awake. Comment the secret word, nebula. Return with an easy breath. Resume your quiet seat. You glance again at the long-term spectrogram, the waterfall plot that shows time going downward as color plays left to right. At first glance, the pattern looks like a fabric from a beach chair. Regular lines for known sources. Soft snow for broadband noise. Occasionally, a diagonal bright stroke appears, and you know it is probably not astrophysical. Perhaps an airplane passed near with a low rumble that created a slight modulation, or a human-made activity took place farther away than you would think relevant. You bless it with a small annotation and let it go. The tool marks it for training data later, helping the next night and the next learn to separate the gentle sky from the gentle earth. The people who built this place also built a culture of care. Shoes are clean, voices are low, schedules respect sleep and attention. When a question must be debated, it is handled with patience and short sentences. Training pairs new hands with experienced hands on slow days. There is time to explain where to stand, where to lean, what not to touch. and how to be. The instrument is delicate and strong in equal measure. It responds well to kindness. The gentle rhythm continues. On the analysis side, some will study populations of events, counting detections and laying them in a distribution. They will speak softly about rates and uncertainties. They will draw curves and lay out intervals that hold a certain fraction of possibilities. In the deep night at the console, this work feels like whispers from a library. You can almost hear pages turning as people in other buildings write. The words leave in emails and arrive in shared documents, but in your mind, they are simply soft vellum and thin pens, precise and calm. When the microseism rises in the early morning because of far-off storms or the changing mode of winds across the ocean, the baseline climbs a little, like a tide. It is not a warning. It is the world having its own quiet. You watch the curve and see if the system remains within its design. It does. You note the change in the log with a few words. The sun might be far below the horizon still, or it may be touching the idea of coming. Either way, your attention does not waver. The gentle rhythm continues. It can be soothing to imagine the structure inside one of the long vacuum tubes, even if you cannot see it. Inside, the space is clean and almost without atoms. If a mote of dust entered, it would be a rare traveller in a vast open lane. The beam passes through, reflecting back and forth, touching mirrors coated with dozens of layers that alternate in refractive index in such a way that almost all the light returns. Each layer is a tiny fraction of the thickness of a human hair. The precision needed to stack those layers feels like a lullaby when you think about it. Someone planned that careful stack, and the result is a surface where light can rest in the same phase as itself, swelling in amplitude in the cavity and then returning to the central station with a calm, known character. Quantum effects, the kind that can sound urgent in other contexts, are here a quiet partner. The amplitude and phase of light carry uncertainties that add gentle grain to every measurement. Squeezing can reduce one component of that grain. Nothing dramatic happens on screen. A modest improvement in signal-to-noise ratio appears, especially at higher frequencies. Sometimes the shift is a fraction of a decibel, and it matters because it stacks with many other small improvements that together create a calmer floor. The gentle rhythm continues. There is a simple beauty in the way the beam splitter divides the laser light. The beam reaches it and then continues in two equal halves. Each half takes a separate corridor and returns. When they recombine, if the path lengths are matched to within an incredibly small tolerance, they interfere destructively at the detector and leave almost no light. A quiet darkness at the output means the difference between arms is zero in the language of the instrument. A small change brightens the detector just a bit. Brightness changes are easier to measure than absolute brightness by itself. So this method gives a way to sense tiny differences without being overwhelmed by the total light. It is the difference that matters, not any one path alone. This is why alignment and stability are so tenderly maintained, to keep that balanced darkness ready to reveal a tremor when it arrives. You picture the control loops as friendly ropes tied to gentle anchors. If a mirror rotates a tiny amount, the alignment sensing and control system notices and nudges it back. If a cavity length drifts, the length control system shortens or lengthens the path with a piezo element or a coil magnet actuator. Each loop has a bandwidth, a range where it can make differences quickly, and outside that range, it remains at rest. The loops are tuned by experienced hands so that they do not fight one another. The image is of a crew in a boat who all row at the same rhythm, not tugging in different directions. It is a collective composure that dignifies the machine. Sometimes a low, distant train passes beyond the horizon, and the ground responds with a slow wave. The seismometers catch it long before your body could. The control system makes slight adjustments. The detection band is far above the frequencies where that train lives, but the system cares about everything that touches it. It is a reminder that the instrument is a leaf floating not in a still pond, but in a pond that nearly always has some very gentle, very long waves. The leaf still floats, balanced and free. The gentle rhythm continues. You consider the path of any event that becomes a detection. The signal leaves its source long ago. It travels through regions of space where there are no stars, then past stars themselves that show nothing of its passing, because gravity is not a thing that reflects. It reaches the solar system and then the Earth without needing to find an entrance. On arrival, it threads through the interferometer gently, altering the time of flight by an amount too small to satisfy ordinary curiosity. The interferometer is content with this. It does not need spectacle. It is built to notice what cannot be noticed any other way. In that noticing, as small as it is, entire patterns of the universe unfold for the humans who care to read them. In the present, on your shift, you recheck the environmental monitors. Temperature in the central building is steady. Humidity is reasonable, not enough to leave any film on surfaces. Wind speed outside is low. Ground tilt sensors report nothing of interest. Barometric pressure is slow and smooth. You write a line, and the idea that you are writing line after line might feel repetitive, but this repetition is the lullaby of science. Each line says that all the oddities that could happen are quiet now. The gentle rhythm continues. Training to operate the instrument includes learning to sense when the room is calm and when it is nervous. The room is calm. A nervous room would have unpredictable alarm chimes, people moving faster, and screens filled with bright red. That is not tonight. Tonight, the room is a library, and you are reading the same fine book for the third time, finding new small patterns that comfort you. The light over the console seems warmer without having changed. That is your perception settling. In a corner, a framed photograph quietly reminds you that deep quiet can coexist with immense scale. One photo might show a long arm disappearing into fog, the far end invisible, the near end crisp. You recall the feel of fog beating on metal, the way it smells like clean stone and fresh water. Another photo might show a test mass in a clean room, a circle of glass that looks like winter ice. These images, even if not present, live in your mind now. They color what you feel. The gentle rhythm continues. At some point, a colleague might relieve you briefly so you can step outside and look at the beam tube more closely. The sky has deepened. Constellations feel familiar, like evening friends who require no conversation. You trace a line from a bright star to another and then to a third, not to draw a myth, but to draw comfort. The ground crunch feels rhythmic. Your footsteps are a metronome at a slow, sleepy tempo. You turn back with a full in-breath and a long, quiet out-breath. Returning to the console seat, you shift the weight of your body and enjoy the sensation of your spine lengthening a bit. Screens welcome you back with the same subtle flows of color. You review the past hours in a compact plot that compresses time, each square inch holding many minutes. The plots are uneventful in the best way. If there were a lullaby written in lines and axes, it would look like this. The gentle rhythm continues. When you think of the mirrors, think of their coatings again and how temperatures alter their shape. Even a fraction of a degree matters, softened by feedback systems that add heat where needed and extract it where not. The image of a ring heater around the mirror like a halo is sincere. It adds a glow where the curve of the mirror would otherwise drift, keeping the focal properties tuned. It is the optical equivalent of tucking in a sheet to keep a bed smooth. This smoothness keeps the resonant cavities stable, which in turn keeps the detector ready. A small, persistent care. The light that enters the antisymmetric port, the output, carries the information. It lands on a photodetector that converts brightness into current. And then there are quiet amplifiers that bring the current into a voltage with the right scale. And then there are digitizers that take fast, even sips, and turn the voltage into numbers that travel as data. At each stage, there are filters that are soothingly even. Gains are set to avoid saturation, much like a dimmer set to the perfect level for reading. All of it is extremely ordinary in its own realm, which is an encouraging thought. The extraordinary becomes approachable in this chain, step by step. The control software that oversees state transitions in the interferometer is written with careful, conservative logic. It does not allow leaps. It prefers incremental steps and success checks between each. If a step fails, it steps back rather than forcing forward. The result is a sequence you can understand without effort, like counting rooms one by one in a house rather than running down a hallway. This predictability calms human operators as much as it stabilizes the machine. The gentle rhythm continues. Throughout the night, the notion of kilometers of silence returns to you. Silence here does not mean absence of sound alone. It means an embrace of smallness, a discipline of not intruding. Long arms give time to quiet thoughts. A long road beside a tube gives room for a slow walk. A slow walk gives room for a steady breath. The slow motion of everything lets you consider large ideas without pressure. In such a space, you remember that measurements at the edge of possibility are not a chase. They are an invitation to listen. You accept the invitation. Near what you guess is the middle of your shift. You step to a window and look out at the long arm again. From this vantage, perspective turns the far end into a vanishing point. The line could be a pencil mark on dark paper. You remember that beneath the smooth exterior lies pump stations that keep faith with the interior emptiness, that the emptiness is a kind of fullness for light, a place where light can move without chatter. You return to the console quietly, as if leaving a gallery where a favorite painting hangs. The gentle rhythm continues. As hours pass, you find that your mind moves in longer sentences. The instrument has become like a friend dreaming, and you keep watch over the dream. Each time the strain channel moves within its normal bounds, it feels like a small sigh of contentment. Each time a small glitch appears, it feels like a dreamer turning slightly in bed and then settling again. You keep notes for the morning shift that are simple and clear. You will tell them that the night was kind. You will list calibration checks and environmental observations. You will point out a few tiny, expected moments that repeated every 2 hours, like clockwork, from a system that cycles by design. Toward the late part of the night, things often become even more still. Human activity beyond the fence line drops. The microseism sometimes dips in that period between midnight and early morning, depending on season and weather patterns. Sometimes it rises instead. Either way, you have come to appreciate that the world has rhythms of its own, and the instrument learns those rhythms and makes peace with them. You feel echoes of those rhythms in your own body, and that is one more reason the observatory is a good place for sleepy science. Imagine now that a small maintenance test is scheduled for a non-critical subsystem. It carries out without your intervention, mere observation, and it finishes with the same quiet that it began. You check that nothing in the detection band was disturbed, and you find that the handover was precise and faithful. That word faithful arrives in your mind more than once here. Faithful beams, faithful suspensions, faithful logs, faithful hands. The gentle rhythm continues. In the later hours, your connection to time loosens slightly. You look at the clock and then away, and when you look back, more minutes have passed than you estimated. The feeling is not of lost time, but of time being kind. The night lets you move forward without effort. Data continues to stream and be saved. A timeline in the corner shows a buffer length and a steady feed to remote archives. Redundant paths make sure the sky's gentle script does not miss a line. It gives the comfort that even if one path rests, another is awake. Redundancy becomes a warm blanket for data. Behind all of this, the reason for the work sits quietly. never needing to be said. We learn to measure so that we can learn to understand. And we learn to understand so that we can extend kindness to our curiosity. Curiosity does not chase here. It holds a lantern and watches. The long arms, the steady light, the calm people, the slow lines on screens, the distant sources whose lives play out in scales beyond feeling. All of it meets here, in this little pool of amber light, this library of beeps turned down to a hush. The gentle rhythm continues. There is a station where visitors sometimes sit during day tours. You picture it empty now. A few brochures stacked with their corners aligned. A model of a mirror mount under a clear case. On another day, people will come and look with the same soft awe. They will speak in low tones without being asked, because some places make you whisper without a sign. The behavior emerges naturally from the sense that something delicate is at work. That same behavior fills the control room now, even when it is only you and a row of screens, a mug, and a pencil on a pad. As the first hint of dawn reaches the edge of your sight, the color of the sky becomes a diluted ink. The long arms take on a silvery tone, and the beacons along their line fade a little against a brightening backdrop. Birds may begin their simple calls, each note like a clean tick on a recorder. A train far away may be joined by a truck on a road even farther. The instrument takes no offense. It hears only what reaches into its band. The rest is the world's own lullaby. You begin to gather your notes for the morning handoff, not because there is a command, but because it feels good to pass a tidy story to the next person. In your notes, you include a few reflections that will help someone else adopt the same unhurried stance you have held. You mention calm periods, small hiccups, expected calibrations, and a confirmation that system guardians stayed benign. You attach a couple of plots that look like simple tapestries. You put a period at the end of each sentence, like placing a smooth pebble on a windowsill. The gentle rhythm continues. Before the shift ends, you stand and stretch, not as a break from work, but as a respectful gesture to yourself. The room receives you the same way it did hours ago. The hum is still there, the clean scent still present, the light still amber. The instrument keeps listening. The night has passed through the observatory the way a wide river passes through a bend, almost without note, but with a willingness to be known by those who sit by its edge. Step outside once more, perhaps walking a short way along the tube. The air is cooler. The first touches of sunlight will soon spread across fields or desert or woods, depending on where you are. There is a sense that everything that mattered tonight was very small, and that smallness was the right size for truth. You feel a gentle gratitude that science can be this quiet. The gentle rhythm continues. As you hand the console to the day shift or to a colleague who will keep the watch, you speak in simple sentences. You say that all is nominal. You touch the wood of a desk lightly, as if greeting a friend on the shoulder. You return your mug to a shelf, set your chair straight, and write your initials in the paper log. You move toward the door with an easy step, and the door opens with the same softness as before. The observatory stands ready for the next hours, and the network across the planet continues to listen, to wait, and to learn at a pace that matches a long breath held and exhaled. If you are listening in bed now, know that the night shift at the observatory is a sanctuary for quiet thought, the careful practice of attention. The long arms do not rush. The laser does not insist. The mirrors do not tremble, except when the universe touches them in a way they are prepared to show. In that preparation is a meditation. In that meditation is rest. The gentle rhythm continues. You can close your eyes and imagine the amber light dimming a bit more, the screens lowering their glow to a moonlit brightness. Imagine the instruments steady as stones in clear water. Imagine the tubes stretching away like two long notes held with perfect sustain. Imagine the control loops as lullabies that never lose pitch. Imagine the network of detectors around the world like lanterns placed far apart on a beach at night, each lantern held by calm hands. You would walk along them and feel the same sand under your feet, the same cooled air on your cheeks, the same shared purpose of noticing. Rest is welcome here. We have lived in the world of tiny changes together for a while, and it has worn no sharp edges on your attention. Your breath can deepen. Your mind can float above the instruments, then above the building, then above the quiet lane leading to the gate at an unhurried pace. From higher up, the arms are lines of intention. From higher still, they are part of a network of intention. From higher still, they are simply part of the earth, which is part of the sky, which holds the almost silent ripples we have learned to hear. The gentle rhythm continues. When you feel ready to drift, let the sense of kilometer scale become a feather. The world reduces to the small space of a pillow and the even space of your breath, and all that is left of the observatory is the idea that deep quiet is productive, that slow attention is a gift, and that you can hold both without effort. The long arms remain, the lasers whisper, the mirrors dangle like patient moons, and sensing continues through the day. You are safe and comfortable. You are welcome to rest while the world is watched by careful, gentle hands. Thank you for keeping this calm watch with me. If this peaceful journey helped you, a soft like and a gentle subscribe. Help us keep these tranquil releases arriving often, and the playlist in the description will be there whenever you want to glide back into sleepy science. May your night be restful, your dreams be light, and your morning arrive with the quiet confidence of a long, steady signal fading softly into calm.